show is sponsored by Velocity. Digital transformation has never been more important. Built natively on the Salesforce platform, Velocity is a 3-time Forbes Cloud 100 company that enables companies to achieve faster business agility and time to value from the cloud across digital and traditional channels. Learn more at velocity.com.
Welcome, everybody. This is the 41st episode of Let's Do Lunch, the show where we talk about the business of digital entertainment. I have a few announcements before we intro our panel today. First off, this week will be different than weeks in the past. Tomorrow, we're taking the day off to prepare for Wednesday, Thursday, Friday's LA Games Conference Select. LA Games Conference is in its 16th year. This year, we'll be doing it as a virtual conference, and it'll start at 10 a.m. Pacific and run through either 1 or 2 p.m. each day, Pacific each day. It is a separate ticket purchase at lagamesconference.com, and the event will feature around 70 speakers, really a who's who of the industry. The event is in association with Samsung Ads and is being supported by our friends at Xsola. So today's show, Mondays are our Business of Streaming Day. We're really pleased to have Colin Dixon back with us, who will be our host today. On the show today, we have Jason Connolly, who is VP Creative and Marketing at mhznetworks, and Marty Roberts, who is CEO of Wicket Labs. So let me turn it over to Colin. Hey, Colin, how you doing?
Thank you, Ned. I'm doing very well, and I'm looking forward to the LA Games Conference starting tomorrow.
We're really
Wednesday,
excited about it. Yep.
That should be excellent. So we are really talking about the business of streaming today with Jason Connolly, who is VP of Creative and Marketing at mhznetworks, and Marty Roberts, who's CEO of Wicket Labs. Welcome, gentlemen. Thank you for joining me.
Great to be here.
And a couple of housekeeping items first. Please take a moment to introduce yourself to your peers who are on the chat window. Let them know who you are and that you're here. And the second thing is, if you have a question, and I'm sure you will have, because we're going to be talking about some really concrete things that we can do to improve a lot of our performance in online video. Please enter it in the Q&A window. Don't enter it in the chat window. I won't see it. So please do that, and I'll remind you as we go through today. Now, as I said, this is perhaps one of my favorite topics. We have many SVOD services, particularly that have been in market now for several years, and the business is all about improving the bottom line. And one of the best ways you can do that is by improving retention, conversion, and recapture of people that are left. And that is what we're going to be talking about today with Jason. So, and Marty, of course. Now, Jason, why don't you introduce MHZ and tell us what you do for them?
Thanks, Colin. Well, as you mentioned, I'm the VP of Creative and Marketing at mhznetworks. We're located just outside of Washington, D.C., and the primary focus of my role at MHZ is to support and promote our streaming service, MHZ Choice. MHZ Choice is a niche streaming service. We focus primarily on international programming, all non-English programming, primarily from Europe. Mostly it's a crime drama, crime fiction, mystery, a lot of dramas and comedies, but all non-English. Currently the catalog boasts about programming from about 18 different countries, more countries to come. So right now, if I could brief pitch of the service, we're premiering a brand new show called from Spain called Arte Madrid, Burn Madrid, Burn, which stars Debbie Mazar. You may know from Entourage and Goodfellas, but Debbie Mazar plays Ava Gardner in the early 1960s after she divorced Frank Sinatra and she went to Madrid. So it's a fun kind of comedy drama, but just to give you an idea of the kind of stuff that we have on the service.
Oh, that sounds like it'll be playing in my house because I have a native Spanish speaker who lives here, so I'm sure that's going to fit with us. Marty, please take a moment, introduce Wicket Labs and yourself.
Sure. So Wicket Labs is an audience insights platform. We grab data from all kinds of different sources, specifically for media and entertainment companies. So we'll pull in marketing data, we'll pull in subscriber and revenue data, we'll pull in video metadata from the video platform, as well as all the view and video view analytics from the apps and sites that everybody's consuming this on. We harmonize all that data, pull it together, we present it back in a way that we think tells a story about what's going on with your media business. And then probably most importantly, we take that data and feed it back into the marketing system or the notification system so that you know really how to really track the whole consumer life cycle, whether it's acquiring them, whether it's converting them as they come into a service, engaging them once they're part of your service, as well as then saving them if they're at risk. And ultimately, because consumer loyalty can be low for a lot of these subscription video services, reconnecting them or winning them back later on if they've left the service as well. So we kind of use that data to plug into an email campaign or a notification campaign to say, hey guys, we've got more great content, or hey guys, come on back, we've got another great season. Really make sure that data is actionable for the different media and entertainment companies that we work with.
Thank you. And I think Marty just illustrated why I called this session Keeping Love Alive, because that's what a lot of the stuff that we have to do to keep those people in our services. But before we get to, and I actually want to talk about us in all of those 4 phases, because I think people are in different mindsets in each of those different phases, as we'll find out. But before we get there, I want to just ask a general question. How has the current pandemic, the shelter in place viewing and all of that impacted your business? So Jason, have you seen a big impact in your business?
We have. MHZ Choice has been online for about 5 years now, and we haven't seen numbers like the ones we're seeing in the last 2 to 3 months. Almost every metric that you might want to look at is experiencing a current lift. Like web traffic up 25%, video views up 30%, net trials up 13 and 14%. And so we're small, but for a small shop like us, these are extraordinary numbers.
Yeah. Marty, you've got probably a broader view of the market. How are you seeing things?
Yeah, it's been obviously all good and bad. There's the good parts of it, as Jason noted. The numbers are generally up across our customer base. So in the last 8 weeks, we've seen about a 30% increase in the number of subscribers and trialists that we're managing across our customer base. Video views are way up, and consumption in general is way up across that time period as well, although there's a few caveats to that we can get into later. And so that's been really great for our customers. We now have over 9 million subscribers and trialists that kind of are active in our system on any given day that we're managing analytics for across our customer base. So it's been some pretty tremendous growth. The downside to this, obviously, the entire sports segment took a pause, and that's, a bit painful and things like that as you look at that. But, as leagues start to open back up, Bundesliga in Germany now is starting to play, games with no fans and things like that. We're starting to see those conversations pick back up again. So we don't think it was necessarily an absolute end of those conversations. It was just been about a 2-month pause to those conversations. So so in general, it's been good, as horrible as the overall situation is. So you look for the silver lining. So
look for the silver lining. Jason?
Yeah, no, that's precisely right. We're a small shop, and we're doing well right now, but we do kind of we take a pause every moment and are thankful that we're able to continue work. We're able to actually continue to serve customers and serve our subscribers. And we had a little bit of some hiccups when we all migrated to remote work, but we're working right now. And it's, with Marty's help and Marty's team's help, we're actually digging into some really interesting information.
So let's start with you, Jason, because I want to talk about acquisition, and this has been obviously a huge focus for MHZ Choice. So talk about your acquisition strategy, getting people into the service, and then maybe we can talk about the impact that your new cut on data has had on that acquisition process. So tell us how you do it. What's your strategy?
Well, MHC is a bit of a unique bird because the history of MHC is that of a public television station here in Washington, D.C. And MHC has a long history of packaging international programming and making it available to public TV stations across the country. So when I was brought in about 5 years ago to start the streaming service, there was a customer list in place that we used to help, to build the service. So I was brought in to help bridge the broadcast and DVD audience into a digital space. We had some bumps out of the gate for the digital platform. We quickly learned that we are a content company. We are not a technology company. So we've been, about 5 years now, and primarily we look to, leverage digital advertising, strategic partnerships, which has been extremely helpful for us in terms of growing the subscriber base. And outside of that, we have some very passionate subscribers that we are just now going to start building a rewards program, which I'm very excited about because we hear often through our customer service portal, I heard about you through my friend, or I told my friend about you. So really just kind of, traditional digital acquisition methods. So
there's a lot of social, you're dealing a lot with social media to sensitize people to the fact that the service is there. Do you offer a free trial?
We do. We have a free 7-day trial. Mm-hmm. And now that we've been, around for about 5 years, we've got some good data from Marty's team about, average subscription length and lifetime value. So we regularly offer up coupons and discounts for the first month because by and large, we've found that our users are very passionate and they stick around. So the heavy lift is getting them into the service. And now I have some data to back up that if we give them a little push with a little coupon, and my demographic, they love coupons. So if I can get them into the service just by giving them a little bit of a push, they stay a long time.
Yeah. Marty, free trials are very effective marketing tools, right? Talk to us about what you're seeing across your customer base.
Yeah, no, that's exactly right. In general, our benchmark across our customer base is at about 70% of all trials convert, and that's up a bit from last year. So I
want to pause for a moment.
Yeah,
that to me is remarkable.
Yeah,
70% of people that start a free trial end up as a paying customer.
That's right. Now, there's always caveats to that. Longer trials typically don't work as well. So we have, 30-day trials. You see lower conversion rates, mainly because people can burn through. The flip side of that is that churn is a little bit lower in those customers in month 1 versus others. So it's just a matter of when the customer leaves. But months 1 and 2 and 3 are kind of the critical months for any customer relationship. And so whether that's during a trial or just post the sale, but at least if they've converted, you've had one successful billing, event with those guys. You're collecting a little bit of revenue back from them. So we find that trials are really effective. That being said, every one of our customers has what we call stalled trialists. So they've come in, maybe it's a 7-day trial. They've watched one video or one show, and they haven't watched anything in 4 days. Well, you've only got 7 days to get to those guys, and figure out, hey, show them a little love and help them to come into the service itself. And so we're always looking at, how are we trending against those stall trialists and helping them, nudge them to get into the service versus, the flip side of that, which is making sure that, our customers are performing against what we're seeing as a generalized benchmark across our customer base. So.
Very good. So apologize for my dog's comment there.
It was compelling, clearly. For the dog.
Yes.
So, yes.
So once we have got them across that barrier of payment, the focus then really switches to retention. So Jason, talk to us about how you have been doing that in the past and how you're using data now to inform that process. And you have some really, I know you have a couple of really interesting stories about how you're actually going about this. So tell us what you're doing.
Sure. So before we partnered with Wicket Labs and HubSpot to kind of generate, our marketing campaigns, we were kind of employing what I call just kind of a one-size-fits-all marketing strategy. Like a fire hose. The message is coming at you whether you want it or not. So, but with partnering with Marty's team at Wicket Labs, you're probably going to hear this a lot during the course of this chat. I now have access to data that I've never had before. I've never had this level of insight into, what our customers are watching, when they're churning out, how they're churning out. So when we hooked up with Wicket Labs, the thing that jumped off immediately was that the folks that were in our free trial that hadn't watched a video were 80% likely to cancel. I've never had that level of insight until this partnership, okay? So now with HubSpot, I'm able to actually generate a campaign that monitors a free trialer. When they come in, if they haven't watched anything at day 5, I send them a little nudge, a little reminder message. Here's something that maybe you're having trouble, here's something to watch on the service. Also, our demographic is sometimes a little bit wary of tech. So in that messaging is also some very clear how-to articles as well. What we found is that just in the couple months that we've been employing this very specific campaign, that number has dropped 50% in terms of people that are staying in the service. So it's just been, and that's just one of 100 examples of how I'm very excited to start leveraging Wicket Labs and HubSpot and our SVOD provider, Vimeo.
So is that something that, can you see, when somebody signs up, can you see what they were browsing when just before they signed up?
For the most part, yes. Sometimes not. But so HubSpot tracks all that information. We can segment on that data. But specifically with Wicket Labs, what I can do is when folks are actually in the service for a while, I can actually find out what they're a fan of, what kind of stuff that they like to watch. And if they happen to be in the service for a little while and they haven't watched anything in a while, I can send them a personalized, message that is catered to their taste and to what they watch, which I've never had that level of insight before. So our users are very attached to email. It's a relationship that I protect fiercely. So now going forward, I can give them messaging that is very specific to them, very personal to them, so that I'm sure we're already seeing open rates climb because I'm giving them messages that is tailored to them.
Very good. So Marty, can I sort of open that up a little bit and talk more broadly about that sort of approach across the customer base? Are other people taking that approach, and is it equally as effective?
It is, yeah. So, when we talk about churn with our customers, it breaks into a couple of kind of key categories. So the first one and most impactful, especially over the first couple of months, is their engagement status. So are they consuming video? And it's interesting. We just rolled out some new charts that basically track engagement status over time. And it's, and we can talk about the macro trends, but what's really interesting is that as we look at that data, we find that in general, those users that are active and consuming content, they're engaged users. Those users that haven't watched anything in the last month, but maybe have in the last 3 months, basically, we call those idle users, basically. They're starting to drift away from you. The lifetime value difference between them can be 30 to 50%. So that value that they're to your business, as people slip away from you, their lifetime value goes way down as a general rule. Intuitive, of course, but it's really interesting to actually see the data and see that manifest into those customers. And so then, as Jason pointed out, is then how do we keep those users really engaged with that content, and what content we're promoting to them, especially as we might have 1 or 2 big marquee shows, and then those come out of season, or I watched all those episodes. What are we promoting to them next? All those questions about how do we engage our users and talk to our users, and what should we be telling them can be a very data-driven message to kind of avoid that fire hose, like, hey, all you got is new shows that pumping at you, that kind of stuff. So that's one aspect of it. The other things that really start to affect churn, lower causalities, but things like what devices are they consuming on? So we find that obviously intuitive, but always interesting to see from the data, those users that watch on a big screen like a Roku or Apple TV or you name it, they tend to churn at half the rate as those users that only watch on iOS or Android. And so again, intuitive, but as we can call out, we can then segment users and say, hey, if you're not watching on one of those devices, let's include a little plug for our Roku and our Apple TV app and our Fire, or whatever we have lined up in that messaging for those users that are only watching on their phone today. Because we know if we can get them over into a multi-device kind of consumption pattern, we're going to extend that relationship, we're going to reduce our churn over time, things like that. And so, it's really about how do we look at those different segments of users. The last thing I'd say on churn as a general rule is that in our machine learning model, which is kind of a risk analysis on who's going to leave or the service, what we found is that after 6 months, as much as inactivity is really important in months 1, 2, and 3, after 6 months, we cannot prove causality between inactivity and churn. And so what happens is you get these customers that are kind of used to paying. And so after 6 months, what you'd say is maybe they're not consuming as much video, but the best way to maximize lifetime value and reduce churn is to kind of let them float. In fact, most of our customers have this anecdotal story where they're like, yeah, we rolled out a new Roku app and we told everybody about it because we were super excited. And then churn spiked through the roof because we reminded everybody they have a gym membership they're not using anymore, right? And so, these are the things where, as Jason calls out, that if we can segment our audience into very defined cohorts and then message to them appropriately, what we're really doing is getting much better at how we can message to each of those cohorts and then extend that lifetime value, reduce that churn, etc.
So let's explore that a little bit, Jason, because you have some very interesting. You're using some of those cohorts, some of those groupings,
yes,
and you're using them in different ways, even when you have like a similar asset. So I know one of your big shows is that great show Montalbano. Right. You have a new season coming up. You have a great story there about how you're using that in different domains, slightly differently. Talk to us about that.
Right. So yeah, coincidentally, a new episode of Detective Montalbano launches this week on mhzchoice.com. So just a quick
plug done.
Right. So anyway, it's for us, it's one of our marquee series. It's one of our most popular series, but we can see from historical data from Marty's team that typically we'll see folks come in, they watch, and they go out. Previously, I had no insight to, I knew our audience behaved that way, but I didn't know who behaved that way. So now what I'm able to do is I'm able to tell all the folks who are fans of this particular series, I can message them directly. New episodes coming out this week. Here's a coupon code to come on back. That's phase one of this strategy. Second phase is using one of the great tools on Wicket Labs called Hidden Gems, which then I compare our catalog, give the folks a specific recommendation that's similar to Montalbano. So after the Montalbano run completes, I can hit them with a very quick message. Here's something that maybe you haven't checked out yet that's similar to Montalbano, to help them keep them from leaving the service, because that's been a very popular trend on this particular series. Come in, watch, go out, wait for the next season. So this year, I have some insight on that sliver of folks that only watch Montalbano. And I'm going to really, this year, we're going to try really hard to keep those folks a little bit longer. And I've never had that insight before.
So you're really going after helping them step outside that one show that they came to watch and find something new on the service.
Absolutely. And hopefully, what I'm predicting is that this becomes an iterative campaign. We can just use this as a model to apply across different series sets going forward.
So before I flip back to Marty to ask him a couple of questions about this, talk to me a little bit more about the hidden gems. How does that work, and what things have popped up that maybe surprised you or maybe didn't surprise you, and tell us, tell us what they were.
Well, one thing we've noticed is that our catalog in general is being viewed. Most of the catalog is being viewed at one time or another. It's just that some of the titles we've had for a long time just don't get the love that they deserve. They're great titles, but maybe they were released 10 years ago. So what the Wicket Labs tool does is help surface those titles that people are enjoying immensely, but there's just a tiny audience, though, that are enjoying it right now. So what I can do then is I can pair that type of programming, that hidden gem, and then just deliver it to other folks who maybe haven't seen it yet. And so that way we can help extend some of these rights we're still paying for. So this is a way to kind of help sort of absorb some of that revenue that we have to, or some of that expense we have to pay out for those rights.
Do you explicitly keep an eye on viewing rates of all of the content? Is that one of the key ways that you identify these hidden gems, or is that do you seek to keep the usage rate up on average as high as possible in the library? Is that something that you pay attention to?
I would love to say that it was my brilliance that helps boost that, but it's actually the curation of our catalog. And that really is, I owe to our VP of content, who actually assembles the catalog. It's a great catalog, and we discover that a lot. People just stumble on these programs. So going forward, we're going to try to help direct them, and so people aren't stumbling. So using the Wicket tool, I can hopefully, you liked that? Well, this series has been sitting there for 10 years on the shelf. You haven't watched it yet. Maybe check it out.
Maybe it's time. Yeah,
right.
Yeah. Just want to remind everybody, if you have a question, enter it in the Q&A tool, and maybe I'll actually be able to slot in some of these questions as we go along. Marty, let's talk about hidden gems. This sounds like a very powerful approach to curating the catalog, programming the catalog a little bit more efficiently. Talk to us about how you pull together that list of hidden gems.
Sure. So the hidden gems kind of comes from two areas. The first is we developed our own metric. We call it the attention index. And the attention index is kind of like a net promoter score for video. We take everybody who watches more than 75% of a show, and we subtract those that watch less than 10% of a show. And so you get a score for every video from -100 to 100. And there's a couple interesting things that kind of came out of hidden gems. One was just about every one of our customers has a top 10 title today that has a low attention index. So they're promoting it heavily, but for whatever reason, it's just not engaging your audience. And so that's really helpful, because now you understand where your real estate and you're spending your promotional time. Maybe you shouldn't, have that right on the front of the carousel or up, above the fold and the rest of the presentation as such. But the second value there, as Jason called out, is this ability then to identify those videos that have a really high attention index, but a very small audience for them. Those are the hidden gems. And so we find attention index is a better metric than average duration, because again, duration, anytime you get into an average, you can always get, especially as you kind of have, they could be misleading. Yep. You can have, kind of a double hump, distribution curve and things like that doesn't really tell the whole story. And so we found that attention index does a really good job of essentially it's a shortcut for entertainment value. Are our users really compelled by this content? And it really does bring a lot of life to back catalogs, because now suddenly you see, I've got some really compelling content here. It's just a matter of promotion and surfacing that more. And to Jason's point, it works really, really well when you have a big marquee show that drops off or comes out of season. What are we going to fill that? What's the shoulder content? And going back and being able to leverage those hidden gems is a great way to do that. And so, you know, a lot of the standard recommendation engines and things like that, people watch this, watch that. You end up kind of in an echo chamber of popular content promoting other popular content. But if the shared audience for those popular shows is very high, then I'm not really doing a good job of leveraging my entire content library, because they've already watched that, you know, the third most popular show or the seventh most popular show. I need to go deeper into that content library to really get the value out of it. And that's what the attention index and then surfacing these hidden gems really helps us to do. So yeah, that's how we approach it.
Sounds like very useful data to maximize the value in that library. But you know, time is getting on, and I did want to talk about reacquisition, catching those subscribers who have maybe left you and bringing them back. So Jason, this is an area that you're just beginning to explore with Wicket Labs, with their tool and with other tools and other approaches. So can you fill us in on a couple of the things that you're doing or hoping to do in the very near future to reacquaint people and draw people back into the service?
Yeah, well, it really kind of dovetails off of what Marty was just explaining, is that this the hidden gem feature in Wicket Labs, I'm working with their team now to help build, I mean, for lack of a better phrase, you know, kind of suggestion channels or recommendation channels based on our content that's specific to us and our users. So if somebody churns out, right now we're building some campaigns in HubSpot that they'll get a tailored message based on their preferences, their genres, the shows that they like. But I'm not going to, you know, deliver just, here's some other popular content that they probably already watched. We're really going to try to dig deeper to try to give them something that is similar to what they've watched before, but maybe haven't watched just yet. So really kind of leveraging hidden gems to, you know, stretch it out to be this kind of personalized recommendation that is really targeted and really specific, not just a, you know, 1,000 people watch this, 1,000 people watch that, you should watch it too. You know, something that's really more tailored to what that user's preferences are.
Yeah, that seems to be more effective, certainly more effective with me as a recipient of the emails, when I feel like they're more tightly coupled to me as an individual. So let's talk a little bit about the future. You've seen increased usage. What are some of the things that you're thinking about for the future that you'd like to do with the data, or with your how the data is impacting your acquisition or your curation? Talk to us about what you're planning on doing for the future for the service.
Well, as I mentioned earlier, we're very excited about this rewards program that we're building. We have, I mean, I personally have, you know, I'm very excited about it. I think it's going to do rather well for us. But
can you sketch out how that will work?
Yeah, it's basically, you know, you refer a couple of friends to the service, you get a discount on a month, your friend gets a discount on a month, or some other similar reward like that. I occupy a unique spot in the MHZ hierarchy because I sit at the sort of control center of a lot of different things. I do the creative stuff, I do the marketing stuff, I do the customer service stuff, and I do the platform management stuff. So I'm able to see a whole lot of signals coming in over a variety of different channels. And what I hear a lot on our customer service channel is, I never heard about you guys. My friend told me. You know, so I'm hoping to sort of leverage the ambassadors to get them out and put badges on their lapels and bring some other folks in to the service. Outside of that, really going to try to dig deeper into delivering content that is specific to that particular user. I'm very excited about it. I think it's actually going to help us keep folks. We have a very good lifetime value and average subscription length for a tiny service. I think we can actually expand that if we could start delivering more personalized content and programming to each of our users, that's what I'm very excited about, going forward.
Marty, so how are you going to help? How are you going to help Jason do that?
Well, I do think that Jason's approach, and we really love this concept of, they're not just subscribers, they're members to a community. And so how do you enrich that membership and thinking about them as more than just customers or subscribers, but there's actually, members to a community that you get to kind of shape and reward. And I think that's always a great approach to it. Obviously underneath that, you need to understand the data so you can tailor your message to each member appropriately and make sure that, and they're reacting. And so we'll be there to support that. The second thing, as you talk about the future, and it's even less future, it feels a little bit more right now, is that across our service, what's been really fascinating is that if we look at the engagement status of customers, we're seeing, and we call it the dreaded X, where engaged customers are starting to drop and idle customers are starting to come up, right? And so as a count of your overall subscriber base, those idle customers, as I mentioned, lower lifetime values, much higher churn risk and things like that. And so, it could be that everybody's been, sheltered at home and staying safe but they've kind of run out or felt like they're run out of your content library. And so there's some real issues to be dealt with right now in every service that's out there about how do we start promoting more content? How do we promote these hidden gems or the back catalog a little bit more so we stretch that engaged user out? And maybe it's okay that they're not watching every week, but let's make sure that they're watching every 2 or 3 weeks out of every month and staying engaged with that service in some way. And so I think that's kind of an immediate challenge that we have right now. I think as the summer progresses, I think everybody's going to look at, and there'll be a real question that's in the industry as a whole. Netflix described their subscriber numbers coming out of Q1 as pulling forward a bunch of subscribers. So they didn't expect it as a spike, but they pulled people forward. We believe that's probably true, that a lot of people kind of pulled forward customers that you would have converted next fall when the weather got poor or whatever. Maybe they jumped in early this spring. The question is can we keep those relationships, or are we going to see a drop off on the other side of it? And so are we going to start to see churn creep up over the next couple of months as people naturally want to get outside and get back to socializing and the rest of things that are happening? And so what to do when people start leaving the house is something everybody needs to be thinking about for the next couple of months. So those are some of the issues that are confronting us right now. It's not super future stuff, although forecasting too far in the future feels optimistic these days. But we do have some tactical things we need to do over the next couple of months to keep all these services in really good shape, keep our customer relationships in really good shape.
Very good. So we're going to move to listener questions, because we have plenty of them. But if you do have a question, I strongly advise you to enter it now, because we're going to do that Q&A now. And Laura, can we put up the poll for everybody while you're considering your question? Please take a look at the poll. We have some very interesting questions there, which we will talk about in just a moment. But I want to start off with Ian Locke has a very interesting question. He asks, you have listed several options for increasing engagement, coupons, curation, etc. What is the development cycle to add these kind of features to the average OTT app? And if this cycle is a problem, how would you prioritize these merchandising features? So why don't we start with you first on this, Jason? How long did it take you to actually implement these coupons and different approaches?
Actually, not long at all. With our Espon partner Vimeo, they've worked very well with us to help implement these coupons and these discounts for our subscribers. So we started offering coupons maybe roughly about 3 years ago, 2.5 years ago. We very sort of put our toe in the pond just to see how our users responded, and they responded. Holy moly. They loved the fact that they're actually getting a deal. And I think that starting off the relationship in that kind of level of, we really want you, so here, just try this out for a little bit longer, extend that free trial just a little bit longer. I think starting out in that level of, sort of building trust beginning in the relationship works for us. And what we found is that since folks they love the content, once they get into the content, and Marty was talking about protecting the community, once folks get into our service and they start sampling the content, it's as if they're like, I found Shangri-La. This is where I'm meant to be. This is my community. This is where I'm meant to be. So I'm very protective of that. And I think starting that relationship with a little nudge in really helps kind of build that trust.
Very good. Marty?
Yeah, so, we see a lot of variability in terms of implementation timelines across the industry, as you would expect. It really speaks to, though, having good partners and vendors behind you relative to, as Jason talked about, couponing or offering, promotions and flexibility in pricing models and things like that. Really having a good subscriber management and payment processing partner that sits behind you is really important to that. I think that, if that's there, then timelines can be actually really short because the features are inherently there. It's just a matter of enabling those. On the app side of the house, especially because those can be longer development cycles, and every time you upgrade your app, you got to go through the certification and approval process and things like that. It always can add some time to the length and things like that. But most of the app vendors in the marketplace have moved to a really dynamic framework, whether it's using, native React or some other code base that allows them to make updates to their apps on a pretty frequent basis. And then, you can iterate through that process. And so where it used to be, hey, we're making changes every 3 or 4 months to our apps. Now we're seeing customers that are making kind of monthly updates to their apps and improving their experience. And so you can really kind of speed that forward. But those are all really considerations that you need to factor in, you need to talk to your partners about as part of the SVOD cycle, is not just how are we going to launch if we're launching a new service, but what happens on day 2, what happens on day 30 when we get our first month of churn and everybody panics, happens every time, how are we going to respond to that? How are we going to address those types of things? And,
right.
and you need to have a pretty agile framework, both on the back-end systems you're working with, as well as in the app frameworks, and then, as well as what we would advocate for is in the data set itself, so that you can learn from it and evolve the system quickly. So
very good, very good. So if people would actually like to learn more about attitudes in all of the phases that we've talked about, there's actually a free report available from the nScreenMedia website called Keep My Customer. So just come to my website, nScreenMedia. It's a survey that was run in the US and the UK. So it's real customer data talking about why they stay, why they come to stay, and eventually leave and maybe come back to a service. We're going to do one more question, one more really quick question here. There's one Richard Reisman asked quite a long question, and I'm going to shorten it a little bit. He asked, is anyone seriously considering going beyond one size fits all you can eat pricing for ongoing services? And this is something that's actually fascinated me. Now, I think, Jason, you do offer content in a TVOD model, right? Is that right?
Yeah, we offer select titles available, a la carte for TVOD purchase. Yeah.
And how do you? Is that just a licensing thing, or how do you differentiate between those?
It's typically governed by a licensing issue. It's also governed by the popularity of the title. If we see that. We get through our request portal, I only want to watch this, we'll see if we can make that title available. But it isn't a large part of our sort of revenue strategy currently. We do offer a number of our titles available for TVOD through some of our third-party partners. But largely we're focused on keeping our subscribers for a long time and keeping them happy. Yeah.
Right. Marty, alternative ways of paying for content? Any of your other customers exploring those?
I mean, we see this a lot. We see we're seeing an increasing use of some kind of transactional based video consumption, whether it's for a particular show or a movie or an event as well. Those things absolutely have value. Obviously, you're not going to have the same kind of lifetime value per customer, but what you gain from a registration name off of a free trial is important, and obviously it leads to a good conversion rate. But anytime you can establish a successful billing relationship with the customer, even if it's a one-time transaction, that is gold to be mined over time. So that's a great investment for companies to make. Jason also touched on this earlier as well. We see this a lot, where finding associations that are of the same kind of ilk, that you can leverage their customer lists. Maybe you're offering them a particular discount or a benefit to join. We see that a lot around passion areas that people are into. I was talking to a company that they have a subscription service all about wine, and so they were leveraging wine clubs to go out to and things like that. And so these are all kinds of areas that I think are really interesting in terms of not just leveraging the established customer relationship that's there, but also offering some kind of special deal to say, hey guys, you're special, let's bring you into the fold and give you access to this content. And so those tactics actually work really, really well for our customers.
Very good. So let's take a look at the poll results. Laura, can you take the poll down and let's take a look at the results and see what people found. So I asked, what is most important in retaining online video services, subscribers rather? And it looks like people think a deep quality library is the key. Second is programming, curation of content. And big titles sort of come fairly far down the list. Does that surprise you guys?
No, I think it's very consistent with what we see in terms of, it's typically not a pricing issue. It's not a recommendation issue. It's do we have a deep library, and do we curate and promote that library well? Those are the two most important things we see.
Jason?
I can speak as a consumer myself. If I come in for a big title and the second and third thing I watch are not so great, I'm probably going to leave. But if the second and third thing I watch, wow, this is some really good stuff and I want to stay around.
Yeah.
It's a cliche, but you got to have something that folks want to watch.
Yeah. Which measure is most important to the long-term health of an SVOD services? And I got to say, yay, customer lifetime value is considered by most to be way more important than monthly churn. Are people right, Marty? Is that the right way around?
Yeah, we believe that's absolutely the case. It's really a true apples to apples comparison when you can look at things like what's the lifetime value of all the customers that came in through a particular marketing channel, so you understand its effectiveness. For everybody who's consuming on a particular pricing plan or in a particular region, you can make some really good decisions about how to nudge people into the right lifetime value over time. So we would agree with that, absolutely.
And finally, how effective are emails for SVOD services in getting you to use their service? Well, it looks like they're pretty effective. More than half of the people seem to read the emails and at least sometimes take those recommendations. So that's good news for you, Jason, right? Because it's definitely a key tool for you. So I got a feeling your customer base maybe will be even higher here, don't you think?
Absolutely. That is music to my ears and to my fingertips as I build these campaigns.
Very good. Marty, last word from you. What do you think? Emails seem like a worthwhile marketing tool, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that, the numbers here are even better than some of the response rates we see in terms of open rates and click-throughs on those emails. So, but we find that they are really the most effective tool. The second one that less people have, but are also pretty effective, is in-app notifications. So we'd also recommend you look into those as well. So
very good. Well, Jason, Marty, thank you for spending time with us. Incredibly important information, I think, for the average SVOD service. And Ned, we will turn it back over to you.
Thank you, Colin. Appreciate it, Marty and Jason. That was a very practical session today. I think we can all take some tips and tools from what you guys covered. So I have a couple of final announcements. As a reminder, today is our only Let's Do Lunch show of the week. Tomorrow we are taking the day off to get ready for LA Games Conference, which is Wednesday, Thursday, and Friday, lagamesconference.com. Also, I want to thank Velocity. Velocity has been a supporter of our show for 5 episodes, and today ends that run. Thanks to the folks over at Velocity. Really appreciate your support. And finally, take a look at Colin's resources on his site, nScreenMedia.com. Is that right, Colin?
That's the one.
All right, there's some great stuff there. Everybody, have a great day. Thank you.
Thank you.